One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Jim, with the news yesterday that the Big 12 is going to look hard at expansion possibilities, how many times have you already been asked, quote, the question, unquote, today?
What's the question?
Is Aire Force a player in the Big 12 expansion picture?
Wow.
And
well, I've only been asked.
Yeah, I don't want an answer to the question. I'm simply asking how many times have you already been asked that?
I've only been asked twice so far, and that was I gave a leadership presentation this morning, and two people asked me afterwards about it.
I'm shocked. I thought that number would be higher. And again, you'll be getting, I'm quite sure, inundated from media outlets on that specific topic, and that's not our aim today. What is our aim today is really digging in to, as you noted, what life is like inside the academy for both administrators and student athletes. And I'd like for you to compare what a normal day for you is like at the Service Academy or at Aire Force, but you've also spent a good number of years at Army as well. You spent time outside of a service academy at RPI. How does a normal day at a service academy differ from one outside?
Well, it's a great question, Matt. And I think I'd start by saying there's a lot of similarities. And, you know, as an athletic director here with 27 intercollegiate sports, we talk about the same things as my colleagues do all around the country. You know, budget and personnel and community and conference and media. All of those things are critical to an academy just like they are anywhere else. And, of course, the academic balance is an important part of, what everyone's talking about. Here it's a little different because we have 21 credit hours per semester for our students. But otherwise, many things are similar. When you start to talk about the differences, they're significant, and they really are. When I look at it, not only am I in charge of 1/4 of our student body, which are, cadet athletes, our intercollegiate athletes. We have 1,000 of our 4,000 cadets. But I also run our intramural program. I run the PE program for all 4,000 cadets. So every cadet takes 4 PE classes during their time here. Boxing, they take combatives, they take survival swimming. All of those are taught by members of our athletic department. We also do all the physical testing for all of the cadets who take PT tests throughout their 4 years of development here at the academy. And we also have a human performance lab. So on any given day, I may be checking out intramurals. I may be walking through a PE class in addition to stopping by a practice, talking to our coaches, and attending some of our games. The other thing that's really a big difference is the military requirements. And it's hard to overstate what our cadets do in addition to balancing academics and athletics. And, for our cadets, they start, and we've already started this year. Our basics, our new cadets have been on the ground already for 3 weeks here at the academy going through what we call basic training. And so that's how all of our athletes spend their first summer here at the academy. And then each summer after that, they're either learning to fly, jumping out of airplanes, going to the Aire Force, out to the real Air Force and serving as, what we'll call a third lieutenant. They serve in different capacities and get an experience in units out with the real force. Or they're here training the next generation of cadets. So the upperclassmen train the freshmen and the sophomores. So we are busy all summer, and I know lots of schools have the opportunity to have optional practices, and many of their athletes are on campus working out and preparing. Our cadets are everywhere, whether you're an intercollegiate athlete or not. So they are everywhere, and I think it's a huge part of what I will call the three pillars of the Aire Force Academy: the academics, the athletics, and the military. And so our cadets get a chance to do all three of those throughout the course of every year as a cadet. And I think that's a big part of their development because ultimately our mission is to develop leaders of character for the Air Force and our nation.
So the time commitment for your student athletes and your cadets as a whole begs the question of when we hear these conversations around the nation with leadership about how we're going to balance the time demands for student athletes better. That's a whole different conversation for you and your kids, right?
Absolutely. In fact, yeah, it really is. And when you talk to our cadet athletes, they're pinging every day, and we kind of laugh about what a day looks like for them, but they're up early, they're in formation, they're going to class. Their fifth period of the day is a military period where they do military training. Then we get them down on the athletic fields. And what's interesting is all of our cadets who are intercollegiate athletes show up at the fields, the rinks, the courts, all at exactly the same time, roughly. And we have one window where all intercollegiate athletes train, and then they're back for dinner and then study halls and study periods for the rest of the night. So it's very regimented, and our student athletes are really learning to balance lots of requirements and excelling at all of them.
So how does that scenario, Jim, impact the decision-making paradigm where for most ADs, certainly student athletes or the student-athlete experience is at the very top of that framework. But now there's this level, or it sounds like there's this level of the individual cadet role, there on campus. How does that impact the rest of your decision-making flow when it comes to athletics?
It has a big impact, and it's interesting because our cadets first. And again, as I told you, our mission is to develop leaders of character for the Air Force and our nation. And so everything we do in athletics has to support the Academy's mission to develop leaders of character. So really, our athletes, and we want all of our athletes to excel in their squadrons, which is, 100 cadets, 40 squadrons of 100 cadets. They've got to be leaders in their squadrons. They've got to excel in the classrooms, and then we want them to be exceptional on the fields of friendly strife. And so our coaches have to be able to balance all of those requirements. And as you can imagine, from a strictly coach perspective, you want as much time as possible to hone their skills in their sport. And our coaches have got to help our cadets strike a balance of academics, military, and athletics, so that they can excel in all aspects of their cadet experience.
Let's talk a little bit.
And I was just going to say, at the end of the day, our cadets go pro in something other than athletics, as the NCAA moniker used to be.
Let's dig into that coaching statement you made a little more. And does all of the commitment required by cadets change how you judge or grade or analyze the performance of your head coaches?
Absolutely. And, for our head coaches, many things are the same. The same things that every one of my colleagues are judging their coaches on, from wins and losses to managing their budgets to connecting with the community. But there's this other big piece, which is how do you work well with all the other constituents on the Academy who are also demanding cadet time. And I think the most precious resource at our Academy is cadet time, and everybody wants some. And so our coaches have to be great teammates with all of the other folks at the Academy as we work to develop this leader of character at the end of the day. And so, and I'll use our football coach as an example. Our football coach does not get to use all of his NCAA authorized practice days before the season starts because his players are still out in Europe. They're out flying. They're out jumping out of airplanes. They're out at basic training. And we don't get everybody back until several days after we could have started practice. And so that's just one of the compromises our coaches have to be willing to make. Many of them, have to try to find ways to continue to get our cadets trained, but they have to make those sacrifices so that our cadets are ready to serve their country when they graduate.
Compared to your time at Army previously, has the recruiting landscape become more difficult for service academies given the makeup of the generation, coming up through middle school and high school and entering the college ranks. Is that any different now than it was a decade or 2 decades ago?
Wow, that's a good question. I think we're probably competing with the same schools we've always competed with, for the best student athletes in the country. And, I think in general, maybe our society may not be as fit as they've once been, but certainly when we're talking about recruiting student athletes, they're fit, they're committed. And so I think the same challenges we've always had are the ones we have now, and that's competing with the top schools in the country for the best student athletes coming out of high school.
One additional challenge you guys are addressing is the fan experience element at Falcon Stadium and in some of your other facilities. And maybe some people would sit back and say, a brand like Aire Force with kind of the inherent following of Aire Force, given those who are loyal to the academy and who went to the academy, they may not need to invest in this area, but why do you need to invest in things like new scoreboards and premium seating at Falcon Stadium?
Well, I think the first thing is what we just talked about. We're competing for the best student athletes in the country, and as a father of 5 sons, all of whom have been recruited to play college athletics, our kids look at facilities. They look at some of these other parts. Obviously, they're looking at the education. They're looking at some of the great opportunities of the academy. But some of these other things play a huge role in decisions for our top student athletes. And so we have to do it from a recruiting perspective. But just as importantly, a huge job of ours is to connect with our community. And, every fan is looking at what's happening around the country, and they're saying, well, why don't we have scoreboards, or why don't we have, the amenities that some of these other stadiums have? And so we've worked hard over the summer. We put in our first brand new stadium, and my guidance was it had to be the biggest in Mountain West and had to be at least 1 inch bigger than Army and Navy. And so we were able to do that. And now we're putting in a second one and in the north end of the stadium. And these are ways to really help the fan experience. And I think it helps us connect with our community. It helps us, with the recruiting. And we're also using our stadium for a lot of other things. And we haven't used it for anything but football and commencement for many, many years. And we've got Tim McGraw coming. We had Nitro Circus scheduled, and we had a snowstorm in June. So we're rescheduling. We've got the Tiny Houses Jamboree coming next month. So other ways to get our communities to come back to the academy and enjoy their academy, because after 9/11 we had to shut it down and we sort of closed the gates for a while, and now we're welcoming back the community with open arms, and we want them to be part of this great experience here at the Aire Force Academy.
With someone of your background, Jim, and such a long history in service academies, what inherent satisfaction do you have being back at one? And I know you probably loved your time at RPI, but does this have a kind of a different feel to it?
It's interesting, and I think anybody in athletics would tell you that getting to play a role in developing, our nation's sons and daughters, there's nothing better in the world. And I think athletics plays a huge part of the development of our youth. And when you add that and put just another layer on top of that, where, the folks that come here have made a commitment to serve their country, it does make it special. And for me, I sort of pinch myself every day as I drive to work. I look up at the Rockies and, 300 days of sunshine, and then I get to come on here and talk to young men and women who just bring such energy, and, I can just see such, their futures out before them are just, there's so much potential. It makes being in the athletic department, just a special opportunity.
I will let you get back to fielding your oncoming onslaught of Big 12 questions, and I appreciate all your feedback, and I know the listenership of One Question and D1 Ticket readers will find some value in them.
Thank you very much, Matt. Appreciate all you do, and I start my day off every morning with what you write, so we appreciate it.
Glad to hear it. Talk to you soon, Jim. Thank you.
All right, Matt. Take care. Bye-bye.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.